They're clapping again for Tinubu, and I still can't understand why. They say, oh, his tax reforms. He has signed new executive orders to reduce taxes. He has opened the borders. People can now import cars from Cotonou border, Seme border. Oh, he has removed the duties on importation of old cars. He has done that, and a lot of people are clapping for him. Even my favorite journalist is clapping for him. But I don't understand why, because all of these policies are just subsidizing consumption. It is subsidizing consumption. Look at it. He removed duties on importation of old cars. So it is going to be easier to import cars into Nigeria. Yeah, he has opened the borders. People can now import cars from Cotonou and the likes. That's going to make it easier to import old cars, right? And people think it is good. But let's look at it. Is it really good? Because the truth is, that is just subsidizing consumption. It is subsidizing consumption. And if what they said as the reason for removing the fuel subsidy, which is not supposed to be removed anyway because there was nothing to remove in the first place, because what needed to be done was actually expose the corruption in the fuel subsidy regime, so that those monies that were fraudulently claimed as fuel subsidy would have been recovered and used for the development of the Nigerian economy. That's what they're supposed to do. But the reason they gave for their purported fuel subsidy removal, which was just a hidden agenda for the increase in the pump price of petrol to benefit the West, why they did it was that it was subsidizing consumption. That was one of the reasons they gave. And now you're coming to do this, which is also subsidizing consumption, because when you make it easier for people to import cars, you remove the duties on the importation of old cars, it makes it easy for people to import cars. And that would increase consumption of cars, quote and unquote. Or the opening of the border at Seme will make it easy for people to import cars, old cars, and that will just increase their consumption. So I don't know why they are clapping. This is another subsidy for consumption, subsidizing consumption. What should or what could the Tinubu administration have done? They could have simply gone to Innocent Motors and say, Innocent, sit down, let us talk. You are producing so type of cars, the high-end cars that the average Nigerians do not need. What we need you to do is, we want you to produce 1 million cars, but it will be entry-level cars, stripped to the bare minimum, only with security features and safety features. That's all. But make them small so that Nigerians can buy them. And then you subsidize the production of Nigerian-made cars. That way, Nigerians will have access to cars. That way, Nigerians will have access to cars, but with the added benefit of increased production. And of course, with increased production, there is increased employment. There is increased jobs. There is increased jobs. And of course, by the time you increase the production of cars, the other ancillary industries will also increase. And that way, you grow our GDP, and then you improve the conditions of living by increasing production and increasing jobs. That's what you do. But what was done now by saying, oh, we remove the duties on importation of cars, is going to kill the production of made in Nigerian cars. It's going to make Innocent Motors and the vehicles produced by Innocent to be more difficult or more expensive to buy, less competitive, because the imported old cars will be way cheaper than the cars produced by Innocent. So you are subsidizing consumption and killing production by these new so-called tax reforms of Tinubu. That's what he's doing. And we're clapping for him. We shouldn't do that. We should look at these things holistically. Let's stop dancing to the tune of the elite group in the West. Let's stop dancing to the tune of the military-industrial complex in the Americas and in Europe. Let's stop dancing to their tune in the name of giving them consistent policies that only favors them. All this tax removal or the duties removal for old vehicle importation or opening the border for people to be able to import cars from the border, all those policies, they just play to the advantage of Europe, they play to the advantage of America, they play to the advantage of Japan. That's what they do. Because when you make it easier for people to import cars, you are making it more difficult for people to manufacture cars within Nigeria. And the more people import cars, what you're actually doing, you are encouraging consumption. And in encouraging consumption, you are actually creating unemployment here and exporting the jobs to those foreign countries, to Japan, to China, to Europe, to America. That's what you're doing. So what Tinubu should have done to grow the Nigerian economy, because this policy, this tax reform is not growing the Nigerian economy. It is actually shrinking it. It is going to improve or grow inflation. It's going to increase inflation and it's going to increase unemployment. It's going to increase consumption. And when you do that, you're killing production locally within Nigeria. That's what it's going to do. And of course, it's going to make it more difficult for made in Nigerian cars to thrive. And that's what they want, the IMF and the World Bank. That's what they want. They want to kill our self-sufficiency so that we can continue to be dependent on them. So when I hear about these policies and these so-called tax reforms of Tinubu, and when I see my favorite journalist clapping for him, I am heartbroken. I am heartbroken because it shows that Nigerians still fail to see the true colors of this person, Tinubu. Tinubu is not a wealth creator. Tinubu is a rent collector. That's all he has done. Look at his antecedents in Lagos. He is a rent collector, and he has perfected the art and the science and the craft of using a few persons, a few thugs here and there, a few of his friends, to oppress the generality of the population, to keep them poor, by using his thugs and his friends to forcefully collect rent and taxes from the people without creating any new wealth. Without creating any new wealth. That's what Tinubu has done. And these new tax reforms and the opening of the border and the removal of the duties on old cars, all of this is just playing into it. Because by the time people bring in more cars, killing local production, killing local employment, they consume more, they'll drive the cars, he will send his boys to go collect Omoyele from the taxes, from the people selling the car dealers. So he's going to collect more rent. He's going to collect more taxes. So he's a rent collector. And these new policies are playing into that rent collector persona of Tinubu. And we shouldn't be clapping for him. We shouldn't be supporting policies that will be sinking Nigeria into more consumption. We should be looking at getting Nigeria out of consumption into production. And to do that, what Tinubu should have done is to look at local manufacturers of vehicles, of cars, and subsidize production at that level so that those persons can produce more cars locally at cheaper rate. And Nigerians would then have access to cars, brand new cars, at cheaper rate, locally produced in Nigeria. And that will help increase employment because of all the ancillary businesses that will thrive around such car production. That's what we need in Nigeria. You want people to import cars, right? You want people to easily get access to cars. Is that not it? Will people not get access to cars easily if you subsidize the production of cars locally in Nigeria through subsidizing innocent motors and the likes? I hear Dangote too has bought over Peugeot Automobile Nigeria. Yes, subsidize the production of cars locally. And of course, for you to truly do that and for us to be truly self-reliant and truly industrialized, it means that we have to activate Ajaokuta Steel, activate Alaja Steel, and all the over 21 ancillary industries around steel. And that way we can begin to build and manufacture our own engine blocks here and manufacture our own body parts here. And that way we are growing our economy. If these so-called other countries, the Japanese, the Chinese, the Europeans, the Germans, the Americans, the British, if they want to give us foreign direct investment, they should come and invest that money in the production of cars in Nigeria, in the activation of Ajaokuta steel, so that Nigeria can be truly self-sufficient. That's the foreign direct investment that Nigeria needs, not this fraud that is peddled, pushing in the name of tax reforms and easing the importation of cars. That is going to just be killing jobs in Nigeria. And at the best, the only thing it's going to do is provide low quality jobs. People who are going to be doing clearing. People who are going to be doing taxi. That's all. The high quality job of engineers that will manufacture the car and all the ancillary things will be lost to those countries from where these old cars are imported. So stop clapping for Tinubu for these so-called tax reforms and this opening of the border and removing of duties on old cars. Those are not helping us. They are actually just helping the IMF and the World Bank achieve their goals of helping their own economies while keeping us poor. That's all they are doing. What we need to be doing, or what Tinubu administration should have done, is subsidize production. At the end of the day, what we want is accessibility to cars. Access to new cars, access to cars. So instead of importing old cars at cheaper rates, subsidize the production of new ones locally. In fact, in addition to the fact that people will have access to cheaper new cars, because the cars are produced in Nigeria through the likes of them Innocent Motors, what would then happen is the government can then work with them. Innocent Motors can put in security features that can help tracking, and that will now make it easy for Innocent Motors, working in conjunction with government, to give brand new cars out on sale, on hire purchase basis or on pay small basis to taxi drivers. So these taxi drivers will not need to have millions for them to have access to cars. They'll be able to buy these cars that are locally made, that are subsidized by the government. You'll be able to buy it and pay over time. That way we are growing our GDP, because before long, we'll now also be exporting these cars to our local West African neighbors and even the entire Africa, since the AFCFTA, African Free Trade Agreement, will kick into place. This is how to think growth. This is how to think production. Let's use our head and think. Let's stop thinking consumption. Let's start thinking production, because that's the only way to create jobs. That's the only way. And the West knows it. The West, they know it, and they don't want us to achieve it. And unfortunately, as it is right now, they have Tinubu doing their bidding, and that's not right. So please, my favorite journalist, look at this thing again. Look at this policy again. Look at what I have said and tell me if I'm not right.